The others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hey, welcome along. It's the Mark Steyn Show in Ukraine on GB News TV and on GB News Radio. Sorry about the dweeby brolly. It's a supply line problem, a bit like the Russian army. We're deficient in certain critical respects, but it's a bra bricked nicht, or whatever the Scots say, here in Transcarpathia, as I'm sure the Russian soldiers reported to our north are finding it too, because they won't have any umbrellas. I'm not acquainted with Fortnite. I take it he's a superhero whose superpowers only work once every 2 weeks. So if he runs into the week, he's in big trouble. Don't forget the most important part of the show, that's you. GB Views at gbnews.uk, and you can Twitter me at GB News. We have a packed show for you, and it is all coming up straight after the news.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe is now en route home to the UK. The British-Iranian aid worker was held in Iran for 6 years. A second dual national, Anousheh Ashouri, is returning with her. They're due to fly into Brize Norton in Oxfordshire in the early hours. GB News reporter Ellie Costello is there.
Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, the British-Iranian woman who has been detained in Iran for the past 6 years, is finally free, and she is heading home on a government-chartered flight from Amman, and it will land here at RAF Brize Norton at around midnight tonight. She is not alone on that flight. She is joined by Mr. Anousheh Ashouri. He has also been jailed in Iran for the past 5 years on spying charges. He is also British-Iranian, and the pair of them will be reunited with their family tonight in London. Their release is linked to a payment of a historic £400 million debt that the United Kingdom owed Iran. That was finally paid today, and Nazanin and Mr. Ashouri will be reunited in London with their families tonight. They are finally coming home.
Well, according to Nazanin's husband, the first thing that she's asked for is for him to make her a cup of tea when she arrives later on. Richard Ratcliffe and their daughter Gabriella say they're delighted.
Huge relief that she's on a plane, that she's coming home, that she's free. And thank you to everyone who's been helping along the way. It's been a long journey that people have been keeping us following it on the news, on petitions, with the government. I've said some rough things over the years, but in the end, she's coming home.
Richard Ratcliffe there. President Biden is committing $1 billion in security assistance for Ukraine, including drones and anti-aircraft systems. That's after Ukraine's president delivered a historic address to the US Congress. Speaking via a video link, Volodymyr Zelensky called for further military support, assistance and sanctions following Russia's invasion. And the RSPCA has issued a statement saying it has started the process of bringing a prosecution against West Ham defender Kurt Zouma and his brother Johan. They're being investigated over an alleged violation of the Animal Welfare Act. It's after footage emerged of the footballer slapping and kicking his pet cat. On TV, online and on DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Steyn.
Hey, welcome along. This is the Mark Steyn Show on GB News, live from Ukraine for our second night. And first, I want to do a bit of unfinished business from our first night. This is, as you can see, a beer glass for Chernihievskaya beer, which was unavailable yesterday, as you may recall, when I stood behind the tap, because Cherniv, the town, has been completely wrecked by the Russians. Just to emphasize that today, and that's why we may not be getting this particular beer for a while, today in Cherniv, 10 people standing in a queue to get bread were shot dead by Russian troops. It's not the only atrocity today, it's not the biggest atrocity today. The Russians attacked a theatre in Mariupol where people are taking refuge. It's certainly not the most horrific. In Irpin, which is just west of Kiev, a man was proceeding along a road, saw a Russian tank in the street ahead, stopped the car, got out of the car with his hands up, and the Russian soldiers shot him dead. Now, if you're Putin, if you're Joe Biden representing the leadership of the flailing superpower, if you're one of the many corrupt American politicians who has enriched himself from Ukraine in the last 15 years, starting with the Bidens and the Clintons, if you're just one of the general meddlers, like Lindsey Graham, the US Senator, who for mysterious reasons was awarded the Order of Prince Yaroslav the Wise. I don't know why, because there's nothing wise about Lindsey Graham. He certainly hasn't got anything compared to Prince Yaroslav on the ball. If you are Klaus Schwab and the space-shifting vampiric globalist space lizards of the World Economic Forum, if you're Chairman Xi, if you're the European Union, then Ukraine is part of some epic showdown between East and West, between massive geopolitical forces. But if you're Ukrainian, Ukraine is just about Ukraine, and you are on the receiving end of brutality and terror every day of the week and every moment of the day. And we're going to talk about that on this show, as well as some of the other bigger picture issues. Now, if you were watching German telly just a couple of weeks back, you might have seen this story because it touched a lot of people. It's about a 13-year-old boy called Mark who made his way all the way from Ukraine to the German town of Cologne. And we now have the other end of that story with us, because with us on the show is Maria. And Maria has been doing sterling work helping us out here since we've been in Ukraine. She helps everybody. She works 20 hours a day. She gets hardly any sleep at all. She's running all kinds of missions back to the Hungarian border and then back into Ukraine. But that's your son, Mark, who was on German TV, and you decided to get him out of the country just about 3 weeks ago today.
Yes, I just don't remember well the dates, because it's if you're working hard, you don't understand which is day to day. But from the first day, when the war was starting, from 6 morning, I had a call from my friend, and he says to me, "Maria, wake up, because this war is starting." So, and I called to Mark, "Wake up, and I should bring you to the border, and you have to go to Germany." And he's crying. He says, "Mama, how I will go alone?" And I tell to him, Mark, the people need me here. I can't leave Ukraine because I must help to the other people. And I just give you to safe hands that people will care of you in Germany. So I drop him to the border and I cross the border Ukrainian with him. And then later I called to my friends. They found the bus for him and he sit in the bus and go to Budapest. In Budapest, he was sleeping one night, and the next day he took a train and he going to München. From München, he moved to Köln, and the Köln people, they come and pick up him, and they care of him in Köln, and he's staying there, and yes, and he gave interview in Germany. And he says that to everyone, we wanted to say that I wanted to call to everyone all over the world today. Ukrainians fighting the genocide of Ukrainian nation against males, Putin's regime, which is against the world, against the freedom and civilians. From the first day of the war, I tried to help for Ukrainian army force. And today I wanted to ask everyone for helping us with medicine and weapons, because Putin kill our kids, women, men, destroying our buildings, shattering our life and take it away our future. The most important is a closing sky over the world. And Mark says similar words in Germany, and I also wanted to call to everyone for helping us. And he also says to us that in Ukraine, the kids, in Germany, the sky is blue, but in Ukraine, the kids cannot see blue sky because they're staying
hiding in shelters.
Yes.
Hiding in shelters. I want to just say one more thing about your son Mark, and that is, I think he's a big star in Ukraine because he's got his own he's been on television since the age of 6 or 7. He's got a better television career going for him than I do, Mark. And I think we've got a little clip here of Mark doing his TV routine when he was 7 years old. And I believe that's his hot blonde Ukrainian producer getting an award there. Boy, what I wouldn't give for a hot blonde Ukrainian producer like that. He's got a hell of a career, your son. You must be very proud of him. And just explain again, because you've had, and he's had a rough life. He lost his dad when he was 2, just keeled over from a massive heart attack at a very young age, and you've brought him up as a widowed mother through all that time. But nevertheless, you feel, and he's certainly an enterprising young man, he's able to go to Cologne on his own because you need to stay here and fight here for your country.
What do you mean that he's?
Well, when I said he's a talented and accomplished young man.
Yes, he was the first time we moved to TV channel when my sister was on program because she's in Ukraine. She's a singer, and the producer saw Mark, and they asked me, Maria, do you like to that we will take him to our school? And we wanted to see him in our program.
So he did a course in TV and radio presenting, which is something I should have done when I was about his age, but it's way too late now. Maria, but to go back to what we were talking about, you want to stay here and help your fellow Ukrainians resist the invading Russians.
Yes, I wanted to help for Ukraine with everything what I can, as much I can. I will do my best. How much power I will have, I will work until I can.
Now you go back across the Hungarian border regularly to collect medicine.
Exactly.
What's that for?
From university, our kids, students in other countries, in Austria, in Budapest, in Vienna, also they collect everything what they can, and they bring to the Red Cross, and from the Red Cross they send to the border here in Hungary. And from the Hungary, I pick up everything and bring here to the military.
And you get that especially to the soldiers in the east of the country who are fighting in the Donbass.
Exactly. I cannot go to Donbass. I cannot go to this part of Ukraine because it's dangerous. We just drop here in the military, in the army, in west part of Ukraine, and they transfer.
But every time you go to the border, because you're a woman, women and children are allowed to leave Ukraine.
Exactly.
And you, no matter how many times you go to the border, you never want to leave. You want to stay here and save your country.
I did not calculate how many times I've been in the border because I'm always going, and also I'm cooking here in the kitchen.
Yeah.
For the people who lives here on the school.
Yeah.
Immigrants.
And she's a very good cook. She never cooked until 3 weeks ago. When she left Lviv 3 weeks ago, she didn't do any cooking in Lviv and has basically taught herself to cook a pretty fantastic Ukrainian borscht type soup that I've tasted, and various other delicacies that she makes. She does like 7 different jobs. And her life has been transformed up and down in the last 3 weeks. And she got her son to safety, and she is determined to stay here and do whatever she can to resist the Russians as they attempt to take her country. You're a great example in many ways, Maria. And I know you cried for 3 days after your son got to Budapest. And because it's tough for you without him. He was basically, you and he were the entire family since your husband died 10 years ago or something like that now. It's an impressive story. I can't get over the energy you have, despite the fact you've only had 3 hours sleep each night, because they've had air raid sirens here in the last couple of days, and it's clear that Putin's troops are determined to inflict as much damage on Ukraine as they can while they are in the country. Thank you very much, Maria. Thank you for talking to us. And if you're in Ukraine, I bet you that Maria's son Mark is going to be back on TV one day, however long it takes in Ukraine. This is the Mark Steyn Show on GB News. We'll have a lot of your reaction to what's happening around the world straight ahead.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hey, welcome back. It's the Mark Steyn Show in beautiful, scenic Ukraine. Regardless of wartime atrocities, they haven't reduced the whole of the country to rubble yet, and a lot of it is beautiful. I just want to make two small points here on GB News TV and radio. One of them is very basic, is that corruption is a terrible thing, and you notice it on a miserable rainy day, in fact a snowy day, such as this has been. Blobs of wet snow at 32 degrees, just at that point where it turns from water to snow. And this is a fabulous town full of intelligent, shrewd people who maintain their homes beautifully. But the public parts of the town, the roads on a rainy day like this just turn to sewers, just turn to mud. Money has been appropriated for roads, money has been appropriated for drainage, money has been appropriated for guttering, and somehow it's all been spirited away, and what's left is just sludge. There's a difference between the people and the people who govern them. And if you've lived in a corrupt jurisdiction such as New York City, you'll be well familiar with that. You have to be able to distinguish between the government, whatever it is, and the country that you love. And people here can certainly do that. My other point is really a portent of the future. I walked into Ukraine. And the reason I had to walk into Ukraine is that normally when I'm in a war zone, I like to go about in a rental car. Don't worry, it's not a special program, you know, a Hertz Gold war zone rental or whatever. You can't ask for it at the counter. You can't sign up for the membership in it. Generally speaking, Hertz and Avis and all the rest of them don't want you to take their cars into war zones, so you don't mention it. I didn't mention it to the guy at the check-in counter in Jordan when I took the car over into Iraq and drove it up what they called RPG Alley, Rocket-Propelled Grenade Alley, which was the soldiers' mordant name for the road to Tikrit. I just took the rental car in. Same thing with Bosnia and Mostar. And you can't do that anymore. I'm shocked to discover that you can't rent a car in Hungary and drive it into Ukraine because they've invented this thing, I don't know whether you've heard about it, called GPS. And with GPS, they know where you are at any time of the day or night, and they can program the car just to die when you hit the Ukrainian border. So the car dies, it won't go any further, and you've got to get out. And I was just thinking, you know, if they can do that to rental cars, they can do that to your car when the powder keg goes up. That increasingly, we do not want people escaping from the control of the state. And I found that interesting, that the control aspects that came from the so-called Western and free side yesterday. You'll be trying to escape. The car, the thing that liberated man from the constraints of distance, the internal combustion engine, and now some guy at head office can just switch it off on you. You better keep that 1958 Morris Minor that you've got up on cinder blocks at the back of the garage, because you're going to need it. I should add, by the way, that too is a corruption issue. that in fact they started restricting the ability to take a rental car into Ukraine because people were going into Hungary, renting cars, driving them across the border, then removing the license plates and the identification number and shipping them overseas to be sold. So corruption can have consequences for liberty, which is very important. But the border point still stands. These things you think are your friend are not going to be your friends much longer. Now let's get to some of your reaction. James says, what do you think of the Cherniv beer? I like the Cherniv beer. I was very distressed yesterday not to be able to drink any of it because the supply has been disrupted by the appalling Russian atrocities. Yesterday was the first day you were free to drink alcohol in Ukraine, which is actually vital to morale during a war. Danielle says, Maria is a true inspiration. What she is doing to help others is amazing. Thank you for covering her story. Maria is amazing. She works day and night, literally 21 hours a day. And you find her and she's on her way to pick up stuff at the border and then, as I said, get it to troops who are fighting in the Donbass. It's a remark, and it's all from just 3 weeks ago. She was living a normal life with her son in Lviv. And today she is on the front lines, effectively, and prepared to be on the front lines, literally. John says, does the Transcarpathian community have an issue with J.K. Rowling? We did that joke yesterday. We like our historical jokes too. I can't work out the difference, for example, between Transcarpathia and Subcarpathia. Carpathian-wise, my knowledge only goes so far. Let's see, have we got time for a couple more here. Rick says, Putin is not interested in peace deals. All these sanctions aren't stopping him. It's about time the West stood up to Putin by sending the troops in. That's the only way to stand up to a bully, not sit back and watch. Well, we'll take up some of those issues now with my old boss from the days when the Telegraph was worth reading, Conrad Black. He's a member of the House of Lords, Lord Black of Cross Harbour. It's great to see you, Conrad. You've been thinking about how hard these sanctions are hitting Putin, and you're not impressed by them.
Hello,
Conrad
Mark.
there?
Hello. I'm not Conrad Black. It's Jonathan Riley here, and I think they've switched me on to Conrad.
Oh, that's my fault then. I have no idea. I'm flying blind here. But in that case, John. No, I'm sure it's very flattering to be mistaken for Conrad Black. Don't call your libel
Absolutely
lawyers
elevated
or anything.
to the House of Lords. There we are.
Yeah, you should be, just for my error alone. Lieutenant General Jonathan Riley, you made an interesting point the other day, Jonathan, because we've heard about the Russian Navy. It's clear the Russians want to take the entire Black Sea coast and effectively make what's left of Ukraine a landlocked country. That Putin is quite clear that that's his aim. And you thought the Russian Navy were going to do some serious damage on what remains of Ukraine's working ports.
Yeah, well, it looks that way to me. There's quite a large Russian naval presence off Odessa. We don't know whether that naval presence was reinforced before Turkey closed the Bosphorus at the end of February, beginning of March. It's entirely possible, and it would be very interesting to know if ships were brought from the Baltic or the Northern Fleet. But there's certainly a large naval presence, which so far has not been used. And of course, there are Marines, and there are supporting formations in the Russian army that we haven't seen down there. A couple of airborne divisions, a couple of airborne brigades, and then there are other formations of the Russian army that we haven't seen. We've seen bits of various armies, but we've seen very little, for example, of 1st Guards Tank Army, 20th Combined Arms Army. And we're all looking hard at Kiev. And Kiev, of course, is hugely important. It's one of the birthplaces of Russia. But so is Odessa. Odessa has the same sort of resonance for Russians. And I think in both cases, they'll be unwilling to go into them for two reasons. One, because they are culturally important, and destroying them would be self-destructive. But also, of course, fighting in them is going to be very, very destructive in terms of lives, property, and so on, particularly for the attacker. But you can, of course, sit around a large city like and port like Odessa and deny it to the Ukrainians just by being around it. It becomes useless.
What you say makes sense in terms of conventional strategy. If the Russians were fighting this war like this, my understanding, just from talking to farmers around here, for example, is that their produce is still being shipped out to the world from the port at Odessa. So from their point of view, it's still a working port from which Ukrainian goods are being shipped. The last time we spoke, I don't think there's any doubt that we didn't expect the Russian army to perform as badly as it appears to have performed. And in a sense, the sheer destructiveness, the things I was talking about earlier, there's a theatre where refugees are holed up in Mariupol, and he attacks the theatre. He knows he's committing war crimes here. He knows he's hitting civilian targets, but he seems to have concluded that that's the only way he can show he's a tough guy. It's not conventional military strategy at all, is it?
Well, there's a number of things in what you say that we should just perhaps unpack a bit. And the first is that, the Russian army has stalled badly. It appears to have culminated, run out of steam, and there are a number of ways it could be got moving again, and one of them is to introduce new troops. But clearly, we've seen a number of quite senior Russian officers being killed at the front line. Now, what are they doing up there at the front line? They're obviously having to go forward and sort problems out because their subordinates can't always do it, and that's bringing them into the front line. Well, that's a pretty clear indicator that something's wrong. They're also clearly having to rely on massive firepower to take the place of morale and infantry manoeuvre. And they're doing what they've done in Georgia, in Chechnya, in Syria, terrorizing the population. Now, the use of military force against civilians deliberately, rather than collateral damage, is unlawful. It's against the laws of war. It is a war crime. It's not unlawful that civilians are killed in war. It's accepted if it's in proportion to the value of the target. And that's something that every commander has to take a judgment on. And it's all art and no science. But the only things that may be attacked are military objects. And someday, Putin and all his subordinates who have been tied up in this are going to have to answer for this.
I'd only make one correction to that, Jonathan, just based from my experience with people here in Ukraine. When you say that Putin is terrorizing them with these attacks on hospitals, on kindergartens, on 10 people standing in line at a bakery for bread, it's not terrorizing them, I don't think. There is a contempt. I've never seen anything like this. An absolute contempt for an attacker among the people that I've spoken to. So that even psychologically doesn't seem to be working for him.
Well, that's great to hear, because his objective clearly is to terrorize. And it's the same tactics that all sides used in the Balkan Wars back in the 90s. That terror and violence against civilians was used as a weapon to destroy or get rid of the population and to remove the will to resist. But it doesn't. But as he's saying, it doesn't seem to be working. I think maybe one of the reasons it's working is that the Ukrainian military appears to me to be fighting quite clever. They're not producing big target arrays that the Russians can attack, and so Putin's obliged to use his firepower, when and where he can. And the Ukrainian army, of course, called up an awful lot of reservists, and in terms of manpower, it actually outnumbers the Russians. But you wouldn't know that from what's being seen.
No, in the town where I am right now, they're very present, but in a rather confident, low-key manner, which I think speaks well for them. There's certainly not the panic and general lethargy that's been seen among the Russian infantry. Jonathan Riley, thank you very much, and I'm sorry I confused you with Conrad Black. That should never happen to anyone.
I'm very flattered. Very flattered.
Well, we'll take that. We'll take that as you say it. We're coming back in just a couple of minutes with more voices from Ukraine. This time from a couple of people I've met right here in town. Don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. We're coming right back.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight, as President Zelensky continues to lead the Ukrainian fight back, we'll speak to one of his deputy's closest confidants on the efforts to govern a country under attack. Is Russia in danger of becoming the next North Korea? Defector and human rights activist Yeonmi Park gives her analysis. Plus, I'll break down the day's top headlines with my superstar panel. The former Daily Star editor Dawn Neeson, the former Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hey, welcome back to the Mark Steyn Show live in Ukraine. You can probably see a bit of frost rising in the air from my breath, because it's quite a chilly night here in Ukraine, but it doesn't bother Olga, who joins me now. And Olga, you're here in Transcarpathia, but in normal circumstances, you would be teaching English in Kiev.
Sure. I'm still in my dreams. I'm still there. I feel a part of my town, Kiev.
I cannot believe that has been 3 weeks of this nightmare. Really feel a part of my apartment, a part of my home city. That is.
And you made the decision to leave, and you spent 3 days traveling through the country, and then came here. And you're not going anywhere. You've got no plans to go to Poland or Slovakia or the UK or anywhere else.
Actually, not. Because, as I have said, I feel a part of the country. I cannot imagine myself to be somewhere else. The people I love, they are still, some of them are still in Kiev, and I want to go back as soon as it is possible. And that's why when I was leaving Kiev, it was the first day of war, I had only 5 minutes to leave the flat and to get into the car. And I spent 4 minutes out of that to leave some food for my cat, because I thought that I'm leaving for 2 days, but it turned out to be much longer. And still, that's why probably I'm still there, not here.
You don't know what happened to your cat? Do you know?
Yeah,
what
I do. I asked some people to unlock my flat.
Right.
Yes, some of my friends, and thank God there are many nice people around, and they agreed to do that. I didn't expect them to do that, to agree, but they did it.
Oh, that's
my cat is okay now. Yeah, and there are many stories like that around.
No. I'm very glad to hear that. There's a lovely cat who when we're on the air, who comes wandering around and tickles my feet. So we like cats on this show, and we're pro cat, even in times of war, Olga. And just tell me how you think, honestly, the war is going, because the Russians have not made the progress they expected to make. Everyone thinks it's David versus Goliath, that Ukraine is plucky little David and Russia is this big, great Goliath. But Goliath has been very unimpressive in this war.
Yeah, I know that they expected the war to be very short. But it turned out that our people, they are fighting very, very bravely. And our people are just unbelievably heroical. And that is the feeling I cannot even express, because I'm proud of our nation at the moment, really. I've never been so maybe solemn, so pathetic, maybe not the right word, but I feel that when when I told my family that I'm going to speak for Ukraine now, they asked me to start with the words, please, please close the sky over Ukraine, because for us it is very important, and if it is done, we will do the rest.
Okay.
We all are helping. We are doing our best.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, there's no doubt that we've reached the limits of President Zelensky testifying to parliaments at Westminster and in Ottawa and in Washington and everywhere else, and then they say, gee, thanks, what a great guy, and then leave it at that. I can understand why that would be frustrating. Thank you very much, Olga. We're going to swap out and bring on Dennis. And I have to say, thank you, Olga. We're very limited here, so we have to actually swap over the microphones. And I have to vamp till ready, as we used to say in vaudeville. And I don't really have anything to say except that Dennis strikes me as a very un-Ukrainian name. And I don't think I've ever met a Ukrainian Dennis before. But it's quite a normal name in Ukraine, is it, Dennis?
Maybe not the most popular, but it works for me.
Okay. And where are you from in Ukraine?
Kiev as well.
Okay. And when did you leave Kiev?
Also on the first day, but that's greatly thanks to my wife, who she says she has a feeling, because on the first day I was also woken up by a call from my mother at 6 o'clock. And she says, are you still sleeping? You don't know, the war has started. But
did that surprise you?
It was kind of, I don't know how to put it. It was not a shock, but I said, okay, let me check the internet, because
you don't believe it unless it's on the internet.
Yeah, we've been expecting it for a few weeks, for a few months, maybe even since those studies of military maneuvers started. So they stated dates like on 10th of February, on 16th of February they will attack. So Ukrainians they stopped worrying, like they won't do it. And I remember speaking to my brother who lives in Vietnam now. He asked me, do you believe the war will start? Because everybody's talking about it. And I was saying, I cannot imagine some kind of war, maybe on the east some development will be happening. But I cannot imagine in 2022 tanks rolling over the border of sovereign country. Like it's not the beginning of the 20th century. Like
well,
yeah,
it's more like the beginning of the 20th century than people think. Unfortunately, I know what you mean. You thought it would be local. You didn't think there would be bombings. West of Lviv.
Yeah, Russia is famous for so-called hybrid wars, when they, in I think most post-Soviet countries, they have established some small parts with some separatists. And they just use it as hotspots when they need to push on.
No, that's fine if you've got separatists or some kind of movement that is sympathetic to you there. But as far as I can see, there's nobody sympathetic to the Russians anywhere for miles around here. I wanted to ask you just mentioned your brother was in Vietnam. And it's incredible to think that Vietnam is now a safer place to be than Kiev. But he's over there. You're in the quarrying business, the quarrying of granite, and you export it to places all over the world. And does that include
Asia mostly,
to places like Vietnam?
Yeah, China, Vietnam,
So for good-looking buildings, they like to have Ukrainian granite.
Yeah, Ukraine has some pretty unique stones, like black labradorite. I'm not sure how to pronounce it correctly. So it's a highly appreciated stone. It's unique. It's only like in 3 places in the world. I'm working with foreign markets, people who want to buy the stone from the quarry for further processing.
And what's happening to the business while the war's on?
Those quarries are in Zhytomyr region, and it's like one of the hot points right now. And actually, since the beginning, I haven't actually even. I think I should contact people from those quarries, but I haven't really had time to think. You know, your life gets upside down. You start caring about totally different things.
No, that's true.
I tried to come back to work, like do some reports and maybe email some clients, and I couldn't type a letter on the.
I understand. It seems to belong. That kind of business emails seem to belong to a time of peace rather than a time of war. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dennis. And I wish you all the best. And I hope very much that you will soon be able to just do normal things like send emails about your business to your customers. We plugged Conrad Black. great historian and surveyor of the geopolitical scene, member of the House of Lords, Lord Black of Cross Harbour. Conrad, you seem to think that Biden has basically these sanctions are far weaker than they're being represented as by Washington and the West.
Yes, I think they are. Because China is not cooperating, Russia can get anything it wants through China. And I agree that the seizure of the overseas cash of Russia is an inconvenience as long as it lasts. But in terms of really affecting Russia's ability to conduct this outrageous operation in Ukraine, I don't think it is having much impact. On the other hand, I will say that the news today that an $800 million additional package of military aid has been passed indicates that the bipartisan congressional agitation for that is influencing the administration, and it includes, as I understand it, a healthy supply of drones. I mean, these are, as you know, very sophisticated drones that fire air-to-surface missiles. And the Ukrainians don't need a great deal more in the way of armament before it becomes practically impossible for the Russians to achieve their objectives without an immense increase in the forces that they have there. I mean, they only have about 130,000 trigger pullers, which normally is only enough to occupy a place the size of Luxembourg, unless you've got a lot of quislings around. And as you remarked, one of your previous guests, there doesn't appear to be a single sympathizer of Russia in Ukraine west of the Donbass. So, so how it works out other than a negotiated arrangement, I don't see. I mean, this idea that the Russians will just plaster the cities until the Ukrainians become demoralized is rubbish. It's just nonsense. I mean, we all remember news film of what the cities of Germany and Japan looked like in 1945. They were rubble heaps. I mean, the large ones were all rubble heaps. And that required constant bombing for day and night in the case of Germany for 2 years. And we're not going to get that in Ukraine. And it's not a serious military policy.
No, and I think you're quite right there, Conrad. What's interesting, though, is you differ from a lot of people in that you don't think there's any risk of this going nuclear if, for example, NATO were to supply that level of drones, if they supplied it on the quiet to Ukraine, so Ukraine could just take out Russian tanks and the Russians wouldn't see it coming and wouldn't know how it happened or who did it. You don't think there's any risk of that going nuclear?
No, because despite all the rather uninformed comment about Putin's mental state, there's no evidence that the man is completely insane. And, we had to coexist with Stalin, for heaven's sake. I mean, I remember as a young person when Khrushchev said, "We will bury you." I mean, there were moments such as in the Cuba Missile Crisis of serious confrontation when Khrushchev visited President Eisenhower and said, we could take you out of West Berlin by conventional means. And Eisenhower said, if you attack us in West Berlin, there will be nothing conventional about my response. I mean, it was something that people talked about as legitimate possibility. It isn't a legitimate possibility now. It's an insane concept, and it's not going to happen.
What do you think, though, of the escalatory rhetoric here? I mean, Boris Johnson describes Putin as a pusher, a drug pusher who has got the West addicted to oil and gas, which strikes me as a fairly nutty thing to say.
I'm afraid Boris missed with that one. I mean, he still appears to be hobbled by his ludicrous faith in the more alarmist versions of the dangers of climate change, and that may be reflected in that statement. But I mean, the fact is, the Putin that we knew and more or less got along with up until a few weeks ago is no doubt he's a dictator, and he's a heavy-handed former KGB operative, and nobody would mistake him for a Sunday school teacher. But he hasn't suddenly become a Hitlerian character. I mean, the fact is, it's horrible what's going on in Kiev and other cities, and all of this news film of bomb damage and artillery coming in onto apartment buildings and things is awful, and war is awful. War is hell, as General Sherman said. But this isn't. I mean, this isn't really a massive assault on Kiev, such as you had in Dresden or in Tokyo or something like that. I mean, in Tokyo, there were 500,000 people rendered homeless in one night. I mean, we're not having that kind of bombing.
Yep, no, that's true. But there is a sense of general stupidity among Western leadership. Kamala Harris doesn't even seem to know that Ukraine isn't in NATO. She's made multiple statements now in which she seems to think...
Yeah, well, that was the impression she left in Poland the other day. Look, I wouldn't vouch for the grasp of international affairs of Vice President Harris, and I am not and have never been amongst Joe Biden's more fervent admirers. I think some of the Western leaders are more astute, and some of the people in the U.S. administration are more knowledgeable about these things than the holders of national office. I mean, I don't particularly like Jake Sullivan because of some of the antics that he engaged in when he was assisting the Clinton campaign. But I think he is an intelligent man. I have no doubt that when he met with the Chinese representative, I think 2 days ago, that he gave a respectable account of himself. And I think Macron's a competent leader. I've been very impressed.
No, that's true. We're going to have to leave it. We're going to have to leave it there, Conrad. We're live in Ukraine and we're counting down to the final moments of the show. But it comes to something when you say Macron is a competent leader. That's rather disturbing on many fronts. This is our second night here in Ukraine. We thank Conrad, and we remind you that the one and only Dan Wootton is here to give it some Wednesday welly, as only he can, for 2 terrific hours. We'll be back from Ukraine tomorrow. Stay safe, stay free, whether in the UK or Ukraine.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGivern. Widespread rain has affected many parts of the UK during Wednesday, but that rain clears overnight and then a chilly night to come, followed by a fine Thursday for the vast majority. A couple of weather fronts still slowly moving across the UK and the weather clearing up from the west, but I think for the rest of the evening it's still wet across many parts of eastern England as the rain slowly moves into the North Sea. Cloud eventually clearing as well. And then a gap between weather systems. Many places clear overnight, light winds as well. Perhaps 1 or 2 fog patches. More widespread, we'll see a frosty start with temperatures at or around freezing. Now, we start off Thursday with that chill in the air, but plenty of sunshine for Scotland, England and Wales. Northern Ireland sees cloudier skies from the word go, some showers here, and those showers push into Scotland, falling as snow over the hills. 1 or 2 showers affecting Northern England and North Wales as well. But to the south of that, we keep the sunny skies into the afternoon and temperatures will rise to 15 or 16 Celsius. So feeling very pleasant indeed compared to Wednesday's weather. But it turns colder in the north and northwest of Scotland as further showers arrive, falling as hail, sleet and snow in places, but eventually fading away during Thursday evening, so that for most, again, Thursday night into the start of Friday is dry with long clear spells and temperatures falling close to freezing where we get those clear skies. But for Wales, Western England, I think a bit more cloud cover remaining, so perhaps frost-free here. That area of cloud across Wales and Western England tends to drift slowly north during Friday. It breaks up to allow sunny spells. And it's just an area of fair weather cloud, basically. For many places, Friday's looking dry, plenty of sunshine, 16 Celsius in the south, 12 in the north, and Saturday, Sunday also looking sunny and increasingly warm as well.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for